Have you ever asked yourself what makes it possible for our internet connection to be established from one country to another? You should know that over 99% of the entire global internet is transmitted through undersea fiber optic cables. However, these cables have not always been safe and problem-free. They can be damaged by various factors, and this issue affects the global internet. For example, some governments and countries might use these cables for espionage and monitoring the global internet. There are numerous stories about attacks on these cables, which show that these threats might not even be intentional, or that marine animals might inadvertently damage these cables. In this clip, we will tell you how the internet essentially passes through the ocean floors, why these cables are so important, and why some countries might want to disrupt these routes. But before anything else, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and turn on the channel's notification button. On the vast ocean floors, thousands of kilometers of cables have been meticulously laid to connect the global internet. These cables are not only a complex system for data transmission, but they also form one of the most important pillars of communication between countries and continents. In fact, 99% of our internet traffic passes through the underwater cables located on the ocean floors. Therefore, these cables instantly transmit millions of calls, emails, and even sensitive government information. You should know that the cost of constructing these cables is very high. Typically, a budget of about $300 to $400 million is required for each underwater cable. Let's go to the underwater cable map website that you are seeing on the screen. Currently, there are 493 active or under construction underwater internet cables around the world. The size of these cables varies from relatively small 300-kilometer cables to gigantic 6,600-kilometer cables. It's interesting to know that the weight of these gigantic cables is also very high. For example, the Maria cable, which connects the United States to Spain, has a weight equivalent to 24 blue whales. However, the thickness of these cables is not much and is usually about the size of a garden hose. Inside the cables, there are layers of special gel, plastic coverings, and copper wires to supply electricity. These cables transfer an average of 100 gigabytes of data per second. However, newer cables can transfer up to 400 gigabytes per second. Now, if we want to refer more precisely to the location of these cables, it can be said that, for example, the Atlantic Ocean plays a special role in connecting the internet from America to Europe and Africa. The first submarine cable, which was laid in 1858 between America and Britain, is also located at the bottom of this ocean. Of course, this cable was used for telegraphy at that time. Today, other modern cables have also been laid between America and England. However, the submarine cables of the Pacific Ocean transmit the internet between Asia, America, and Australia. It's interesting to know that famous cables like the Pacific Light Cable, Network, and the Japan-US cable pass through this ocean. Additionally, the Indian Ocean also establishes internet connections between the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, with the main cable routes passing through the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the coasts of India. Now let's address this challenging topic of how these cables are installed on the ocean floor. Well, when it comes to installing underwater internet cables, don't just think of an ordinary ship. This operation requires special ships and advanced equipment. In fact, internet cables are wound into large coils for installation in the ocean depths by ships called hydrographic ships. And then, with precise planning, they pull the cable roots from the back of the ship and release them on the seabed. Of course, advanced technologies are also used to support these cables. For example, remote control systems and precise maps assist in the data transmission process via the internet and undersea fiber optic cables. It's interesting to know that these cables have a repeater, also known as an amplifier, at specific intervals of about every 70 to 100 kilometers, whose job is to amplify the signals so they don't weaken over long distances. The electrical energy required for these amplifiers is also supplied through copper wires inside the cables. Most people are unaware of the existence of submarine cables because these cables are physically in complex conditions, which makes it less likely for anyone to see them. However, the bitter truth in this matter is that ocean floor cables are extremely vulnerable to threats. In fact, one of the most fascinating parts of the submarine cable story is the incidence of attacks and sabotage that occur to these cables. Of course, there is usually not enough evidence for legal prosecution of this type of sabotage, which indicates the political power of some countries that can carry out such operations without any accountability. This is where wars happen in unofficial ways in the shadows. For example, some security sources have warned that Russia has used fishing vessels to disrupt underwater cables. Despite the tensions between Europe and Russia, there are still areas for cooperation, especially in the field of fishing. Russian fishing vessels frequently station themselves in Norwegian waters to change their crew, unload their catch, or repair their ships, and safely. However, when a cable in this route was damaged and cut marks from tools were found on it, investigations by Norwegian police indicated that this might have been done intentionally. Of course, fishing vessels might accidentally catch the cable in their fishing nets, causing it to be displaced or even lost. But when a cut is seen on the cable, the situation becomes suspicious. Investigations by the Norwegian police revealed that a Russian fishing vessel named Melkart 5 had crossed over this cable more than 130 times in the days before the cable was damaged between Norwegian waters and the Arctic. However, there was not enough evidence to pursue this case legally. Therefore, the inability to pursue legal action indicates Russia's capabilities and the difficulty of countering this type of asymmetric warfare. Russia's perspective is quite clear, that in a potential conflict it would first target infrastructure such as undersea internet cables. Therefore, although some security experts believe that the cable incidents were most likely not accidental, they cannot prove this. Now we better understand the importance of these cables, because when we talk about attacks on these cables, it doesn't just mean a simple daily internet access cutoff, but rather a disruption of communications on a massive scale between governments and military forces, which can have very severe consequences. The reason is that underwater internet cables are not only used for our daily internet access, but they are also used for transmitting sensitive communications and military, governmental, and scientific information. But before I finish, let me mention one point that you might have heard about. Elon Musk, through the Starlink project, wants to make the internet wireless. So, if this project fully succeeds, what will happen to the underwater cables? Can these cables still play a primary role in global internet transmission? Or could satellite internet one day replace the underwater cables that are currently the backbone of global communications? I think for now the internet is still in the hands of underwater cables, but maybe there will be many changes in the future. What do you think? I'm looking forward to your comments so we can have a hot and controversial discussion together. Well, thank you for staying with us until this point in the video. I know that by now you've subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay informed about the exciting upcoming videos. But in this video, we learned that behind the internet we use daily, a lot of cost, time, and precision have been invested to lay the massive cables under the oceans. Of course, these cables can be subject to attacks and sabotage, and this issue shows that the security of the global internet is by no means guaranteed. Therefore, we must be aware of the importance of these networks and their potential risks. Because, as wars today are pursued in unofficial and covert ways, our information may be at risk at any moment.